When you hear the name Albert Einstein, what comes to mind? Probably the wild hair, a flash of genius, and, of course, E equals MC squared. But what if the real story, the one that's actually useful to us, is way more interesting than the legend? Right? It's the icon, the formula that literally reshaped our understanding of the universe. It's become this symbol of a mind that just operated on a totally different level from the rest of us. But what if that's not the whole story? Not even close. What if the whole eureka moment is basically a myth? And what if his genius wasn't some random spark, but a systematic, repeatable process that, honestly, any of us can learn from? You see, his real process completely flips the script on what we think genius looks like. It suggests his greatest tool wasn't just some crazy high IQ, but a really disciplined, powerful way of thinking. Okay, let's dive into this. So first up, let's just completely reframe how his biggest ideas actually came to be, because the story is so much richer than the legend we all know. On one hand, you've got the myth, this sudden flash of insight, like a lightning bolt from the heavens. But the reality? Oh, it was years of pure frustration and grinding it out. We love the lightning story, but the truth is about the slow, deliberate work of a craftsman. Yeah, this wasn't some bolt from the blue. He himself talked about the 7 and more years of just failing and being frustrated that led him to the special theory of relativity. And we know this because we have his notebooks. You can look at something like the Zurich notebook and see him just meticulously working through problems, hitting dead ends, and then starting over from a new angle. He basically turned being stuck into a totally normal and even productive part of his discovery process. And here's the really cool part. This systematic, grinding approach, it wasn't just for relativity. It led him to a whole bunch of other world-changing ideas that you almost never hear about. I mean, just look around. The very idea that atoms are real. He gave us some of the first hard proof for that by figuring out the random, jittery dance of particles in water, what we call Brownian motion. Or lasers. The tech in everything from fiber optics to barcode scanners exists because he came up with the theory of stimulated emission. He even predicted a whole new state of matter, this bizarre superparticle that scientists only managed to create in a lab 70 years later. And that's honestly just scratching the surface. We're talking about everything from designing a safer refrigerator with no moving parts to laying the theoretical groundwork for how we now map dark matter across the universe. The man was so much more than a one-hit wonder. Okay, so the big question is, how? How did one person come up with so many breakthroughs across so many different areas? Well, it turns out he had this incredible intellectual toolkit that he relied on again and again. And at the heart of it all was something called a Gedanken experiment, a thought experiment. Now, for Einstein, this wasn't just daydreaming. It was a serious, rigorous tool he used to push ideas to their absolute limits, all within the laboratory of his own mind. Okay, let's try one of his most famous ones. Imagine you're in a sealed elevator, right here on Earth. You take out a ball and you drop it. What happens? It falls to the floor. Gravity. Simple enough, right? Now, let's take that same elevator way out into deep space, far away from any gravity, and we start accelerating it upwards at a constant rate. You drop the ball again. From your perspective inside the box, what do you see? You see the floor rush up to meet the ball, which looks exactly like it's falling. And this was the mind-blowing conclusion. From inside that box, there is no experiment you could possibly do to tell the difference between feeling gravity and feeling uniform acceleration. They are, locally, the same thing. This idea, the principle of equivalence, became a cornerstone of his general theory of relativity. But it wasn't just thought experiments. The guy was deep into philosophy, reading people like Kant, which gave him permission to question the very nature of space and time. He also believed that the best theories were simple and elegant. He used this idea of conceptual harmony as a filter, a principle that still guides physicists today. But to really get the full picture, we have to look at the man himself. His life wasn't just a highlight reel of scientific wins. It was also marked by deep struggle and profound regret, which I think is what really makes him human. When you look at his life, historians talk about 3 major pillars of regret: his role in the creation of the atomic bomb, his personal failings in his family life, and what he saw as his own scientific wrong turns. And his connection to the atomic bomb, it's just this tragic story. It starts in 1939 with him signing a letter to President Roosevelt, basically a warning that the Nazis might be able to build a nuclear weapon. And it ends with him spending the entire last decade of his life as one of the world's most passionate advocates for peace and nuclear disarmament. And this decision absolutely haunted him. He said later that signing that letter was the one major political mistake of his life. He bitterly regretted his role, saying if he had known Germany would fail to build a bomb, he would have done nothing. And even in his own field, science, he had regrets. He spent his last decades kind of on the sidelines, chasing a unified field theory that never panned out and resisting the weirdness of quantum mechanics, a theory he himself helped create. It left him pretty isolated from the very physics community he had helped build. So, what's the real takeaway from all this? The story of Einstein isn't really about being some untouchable genius. It's about having the courage to question absolutely everything, the grit to wrestle with a problem for years on end, and the tools to explore it from every possible angle. That's the real Einstein legacy, and that's something all of us can learn from.